expensive space mission fails. Welcome back to the Future Focus channel, where we'll take a look at the most expensive space mission fails. Over the last 40 years, there have been many failed launches of space shuttles, rockets, satellites, telescopes, and rovers, exploring the vast expanses of our universe. Here are the costliest failures. Japanese spy satellite malfunctions. A rocket carrying 2 spy satellites, reportedly being used to watch North Korea, malfunctioned during takeoff and had to be destroyed. The H-2A rocket was meant to be a cheaper and more reliable alternative to its predecessor, but encountered more than a year of problems before this crucial breakdown. The project, which took place in 2003, cost the Japanese Space Agency $78 million. Today, adjusted for inflation, the program cost a whopping $97.1 million. Russian probe stranded while orbiting Earth. Russia has been interested in Mars exploration since the early 2000s. Russia's Zenit 2SB rocket held a probe that was supposed to travel to one of Mars' moons, Phobos, and collect the samples. The rover, Phobos Grunt, which reportedly had many parts based on decade-old technology, became stranded and lost while orbiting the Earth. The project cost Russia over $170 million back in 2012. Russia claims that a U.S. radar satellite interfered with the rocket and caused it to crash in South America just after 2 months in orbit. Math error doomed a Mars orbiter. The difference in numerical systems can certainly be a big headache for all. Back in 1999, Lockheed Martin engineers calculated a crucial spacecraft operation with the English numeric system, while NASA's team calculated the operation with the metric system. As a result, the spacecraft went way past the surface of Mars towards the Sun. That was certainly a serious miscalculation, and it's hard to think a difference in numerical systems led to such a huge blunder. This failed space program cost the Americans $125 million just for building the orbiter. Today, the value is worth more than $170 million thanks to inflation. Russian communications satellite lost in space. A Russian Proton rocket launched in August 2011 with communications satellite Express AM-4 inside it. Once it got into orbit 24 hours later, it veered off course and became lost in space. All the Russian ground control and U.S. space surveillance teams could see at that point was the small part of the rocket that carried the once promising satellite out of the Earth's atmosphere. The project that launched in 2011 cost nearly $300 million USD. Today, the loss is estimated to cost the Russians over $305 million. South Korean satellite burns in atmosphere. A satellite launched from South Korea's first ever rocket missed its designated orbit and disintegrated in the Earth's atmosphere. The weight of the rocket was miscalculated, and so it didn't have enough thrust to reach orbit. Its speed unexpectedly fell, and the satellite tumbled back down towards Earth, where it burned up in the atmosphere. The satellite and rocket alone cost the Koreans $380 million. There were other unseen expenses that may have taken the project cost to over $400 million USD. Today, the cost is likely to be over $450 million USD. Climate satellite fails to reach orbit. NASA launched a $424 million satellite called Glory that would track the Earth's climate in March 2011. But problems were encountered as the Taurus XL rocket went into the atmosphere. The rocket's nose cone failed to separate, and the rocket likely fell into the Pacific Ocean. Satellite carrying a probe and a telescope disintegrates in Earth's atmosphere. The orbiting astronomical observatory carried the world's largest telescope, but a 12-foot tall protective cone did not function correctly, and was probably why the satellite didn't make it through the Earth's atmosphere. The American program lasted from 1966 to 1972, and at the time, it was the most expensive satellite ever built, costing $98 million. Today, when adjusted for inflation, the project cost a whopping $580 million. A Soviet rocket and a space station fail within 1 month of each other. A Soviet rocket carrying an electric moon roving robot crashed into the Pacific Ocean just a month after a $500 million Salyut space station failed. It left out whether the U.S. would be able to sustain a space program without similar losses. Space Shuttle Challenger explodes on liftoff. Just 73 seconds after launching on January 28, 1986, the American Space Shuttle Challenger exploded in midair, ultimately killing all 7 crew members. The abnormally cold temperatures, combined with faulty equipment, caused the tragic explosion. Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. The disintegration of the Space Shuttle Columbia on February 1, 2003, as it re-entered the atmosphere was another of the most traumatic accidents in the history of space expedition. The Columbia disaster was the second that occurred during NASA's Space Shuttle program after the Challenger, also causing widespread sadness and concerns about the space programs. The accident was caused during liftoff by the breaking off of a piece of foam that was intended to absorb and insulate the fuel tank of the shuttle from heat and to stop ice from forming. The large piece of foam fell on the shuttle's left wing and created a hole. Though NASA officials were aware of the damage, the severity of it was unclear because of the low-quality cameras used to observe the shuttle's launch. Knowing that the foam regularly had fallen off of previous shuttles and had not caused critical damage, NASA officials believed there was nothing to worry about. But when the Columbia attempted re-entry, after its mission was complete, gases and smoke entered the left wing through the hole and caused the wing to break off, leading to the disintegration of the rest of the shuttle 7 minutes from landing. The entire crew of 6 American astronauts and the first Israeli astronaut in space died in the accident. NASA's Space Shuttle program was again suspended after this disaster. Despite the tragedy, an experiment performed during the expedition that studied the effects of weightlessness on the physiology of worms was recovered from the wreckage. The worms, left in a petri dish, were still alive, a symbol of the dedication of the Columbia crew and a monument to their efforts. Thanks for watching.